Hello, and welcome to episode 72 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Tonight, we'll discuss Cloud9's lackluster results that took place over the week. I guess our little trip under the sun was short-lived. I'm your host, Havokpus, and today I'm joined by...
Coming back is Dr.Manhatten once more.
We finally have a guest, you guys. It's not just me and Frozen anymore.
But I'm also here because my opinion matters sometimes. Not often, but sometimes.
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes, Frozen.
And also a shout out to that boner guy, aka Ian, for being our audio overlord yet again this week and last week and every other week.
Yes, his audio skills are too strong. But luckily we have him here to support us when it matters. But gentlemen, let's get into it today. I'm talking about Cloud9's woes with some CSGO action. First up, CSGO participated in the Star Ladder Series tournament, and it seems that their major spotlight has already dimmed. While Cloud9 did defeat Heroic and Virtus Pro in their Swiss round matches, Cloud9 ended up taking some very ugly losses against SK, FaZe Clan, and of all teams, Mouse Esports. I can accept this SK and the FaZe Clan losses, but you lose to Mouse? You've beaten them so many times before. Mouse has been like an easy opponent for you historically. How are you gonna go into this and then just have just this really ugly performance against Mouse? I just don't know what to say. I'm baffled. I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah, overall, I feel like it wasn't that great of a week for CSGO. I think that this is something that we see pretty consistently from our CSGO rosters, where kind of when it matters, mostly they'll pull through, and sometimes just drop matches to like a top 5 team. But it seems that they're prone to dropping matches against teams that they probably shouldn't, including Mouse. So I'm not sure if it's the setup that they're going with, like in-house, or if they're just not quite as focused in tournaments like this. Because I think we all know that Cloud9 is a better roster than Mouse for sure, and that they can compete with teams like SK and FaZe. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think one thing that's kind of interesting is that people have kind of been saying that C9 just makes these really dumb mistakes, and they'll just drop rounds where it's just like, you had that. What were you doing? Just, no, stop it. But hopefully they can pull themselves back together. Their next big thing is IEM Katowice, which is only in a few days, actually. I think it's February 24th, which is, only a few days away. So hopefully they'll pull it back together. I'm not sure what the team needs to do to fix their issues, because this has kind of been happening for a little while where, they'll drop rounds they shouldn't, or they make stupid mistakes and make the match against, opponents that they should beat pretty handily, a lot closer than normal. So I'm not sure what they need to do. I don't think roster changes are the answer. I mean, our roster, it won a major, for God's sakes. That's certainly not the thing to do. I'm not sure if you need to maybe hire on some more staff to do analysis, or focus more just on planning strategies beforehand. I'm not sure, but hopefully, they have at least gotten over whatever jet lag or fatigue issues that they experience, and they can just move on and perform well at IEM Katowice and, do well there.
Yeah, I think the name of the game at this point now is kind of Cloud9 kind of makes these stupid mistakes throughout all of their esports, but they're very or they're prone to making kind of dumb mistakes sometimes. And it feels like more than others, which is why we have a specific failure in Overwatch named after us, the Cloud9, when in overtime you kind of just accidentally bump too far off the payload and lose the match because of it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just using too much confirmation bias, but it seems like that as an org we're kind of prone to stupid mistakes like that. But it is riddled with super high successes when we actually turn up our game, and it seems like the CS:GO team is kind of has some of those mistakes where they kind of just leave their brain at home.
Yeah, they got to do brain check. They don't have Reaper to do a brain check. I think Reaper maybe needs to just email Valens and just be like, hey, before match, do a brain check, just to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone's ready.
I would love to see that, by the way.
I would actually love to see just a video of Reaper and a few of the other Cloud9 coaches just kind of get together and talk about stuff. That would be a really interesting series, actually. Jack, if you're listening to this, please make it happen, because I feel that would be incredibly interesting content.
That's your next episode of 7 Minutes on Cloud9, by the way.
Alright, well, let's move on to PUBG, where the team continues to kind of struggle and, I don't know, do somewhat okay, but not really. They participated in the PGL Spring Invitational, and while they did get first in their sort of group match, when it came to the qualifier finals that would get them a spot in the Invitational if they got top 3, Cloud9 ended up placing 7th, which is kind of unfortunate. They also are scoring fairly low in on Ozom and the PUBG NA Showdown. I think in PUBG Showdown they're 34th or something, and I think for Ozom they're 14th or 11th. So they're not, doing really hot. And I'm not sure if, and we talk about, I mention this all the time, but I'm not sure if it's that the team is just not good strategically, or if it's just that the randomness of the game makes it very difficult for one team to really hone in and find success. And I think that's something that's probably always going to plague us as a team, maybe, or just any team in general in PUBG. And I'm not sure if it's, a question of skill or RNG or what, but I want to see the PUBG team do better. I know that they are going to be at IEM Katowice as well, so maybe they'll do better on LAN. I would hope so, considering I guess these events are all kind of online, and they may be experiencing ping issues or whatever, but hopefully at a LAN event like IEM Katowice, barring any horrid technical difficulties that IEMs seem to have, at least from the League of Legends side.
Wait,
but hopefully they'll do well.
IEM and technical difficulties go hand in hand. You can't separate them.
But they've been doing it for so long. You would think by now they would realize, okay, we're having these technical issues every single tournament. We need to do something to ensure that these don't happen. We need to triple check just everything. We need to make sure everything is fine, and have backups upon backups just to make sure that nothing goes wrong and play isn't super interrupted.
You would fucking think. All right. I kind of have a fun question. So, if all the Cloud9 teams were to face each other in each of the esports, which esport do you think the professional team would be most likely to lose in? Does that make sense?
Can you elaborate a little bit?
So like say every Cloud9 team, Rocket League, CSGO, PUBG all played League. Would they have any chance against the actual League of Legends team? Or say
Oh,
all the
okay.
teams, League, CSGO, PUBG, all play Overwatch, or would they have a chance against the Overwatch team? Or CSGO,
Um,
League, Overwatch, Rocket League, all against PUBG? Like, which esport do you think all the other orgs would have a chance of beating the main team in?
that's a good question. I'm not sure because I think that the pros in that team have just an advantage already because they've like studied the game so much and they're very coordinated. I think maybe in some shooters, like maybe Overwatch, the PUBG guys or like the CSGO guys could maybe squeak out maybe a map or two, considering, most FPSs is more about just like aim. But I don't know. I think I would actually like to see League of Legends versus Overwatch because both games are very similar. So it would be really interesting to see if, if anyone is really better than the other on that one. But I'm not sure. What about you, Dr. Manhattan? Do you have any thoughts on this interesting hypothetical?
I was actually going to mention League versus Overwatch just because of the fact that the Overwatch guys might have a slight edge than you actually that I actually wasn't even aware of until I did some more research. I actually just learned that the other day, Gesture actually was like a semi-pro in League back in Korea. Like he was on some team that I don't think anybody's ever heard of. And actually, when I looked up his like page, like he didn't really have much of like a bio, but like he was actually like master tier in Korea. So even
Oh, really?
that alone, like, it would be interesting to see. Like, okay, let's see how they do. And I think that every once in a while, some of like the league guys will like. I think at some point I've like played Overwatch, so I would like to see that personally.
Yeah, that would actually be really fun. Plus, it would give some really great cross promotion. With the Cloud9 League team and the London Spitfire, everyone's kind of seeing this interesting sort of meeting of worlds, and I think that would be a really cool marketing stunt. Though the scheduling would be kind of a nightmare. You'd probably have to do it in the off season, really, when everyone's just not doing anything.
Like Christmas time, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that it would certainly be super cool to watch.
Yeah, yeah. My bet would be, I think the other esports would have a better chance of beating the PUBG team than anybody else in their respective esport. Just
Sneaky is
because,
actually really good at PUBG.
yeah, because
If
I
you've
think
like watched
a lot of the
his
skills are
stream,
transferable. Yeah,
yeah.
I think a lot of the skills are transferable, and with just a little bit of luck, they might have a chance at picking off a win. Not consistently, but picking off a win.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any chance anyone could beat teams like CSGO, Overwatch, League, or Rocket League, though. I think the skill cap
Yeah, probably.
is too high at the moment. I mean, I think it is like that in all of these sports. I just think that if you were to play each game 1,000 times, that PUBG would have the highest chance of losing.
Yeah, well, Jack, again, another brilliant idea. Maybe host your own Cloud9 Olympics. Have all the teams compete in different events and see which one's the best.
I really want to
We're pumping these
cosplay.
out. We're pumping these out, guys.
Yeah, I really want to cosplay a runway show with Sneaky dressed as Star Guardian Urgot.
Yes, please. Sneaky fashion show. You got the you got it all. But
Prophet
let's
dressed
move on.
as Tracer.
Yeah, but let's move on, guys, to talking about some Overwatch for a little bit. So Stage 2 of Overwatch League is well underway, actually, as of recording this on Wednesday. It just started back up again. The London Spitfire has rematches against the Houston Outlaws and New York Excelsior, who they beat in the Stage 1 playoffs a few weeks ago. So probably the biggest question is, will the team be able to remain a top team post-Mercy meta, and also losing players like Rascal and Fisher? The meta is kind of changing where you can use, Reinhardt, they can play on King's Row, and that's a big Reinhardt map. Rascal has this dense hero pool where he can play all these really niche picks and be really versatile. So now losing that, does London also lose its versatility and depth? Can they compete at the same level and win out against these top teams like LA's in New York? Who knows? Dude, do any of you have any thoughts? Frozen and I talked about this in depth on the dogfight, so he may just sit out on this one. But Dr.Manhatten, do you have any Overwatch thoughts?
I think that the main lineup that we have right now should be serviceable, or at the very least, pretty damn good. Post Mercy meta will definitely help, considering, to my knowledge, none of our supports actually enjoyed playing Mercy.
Nuss apparently can't play Mercy. Like he never played Mercy up until the Mercy meta, and he just got the short end of the stick and was just like, all right, you have to be our Mercy. And I think he even acknowledged it's just like, yeah, I'm not a good Mercy. I rarely play Mercy, but I have to play Mercy. And I think that now that he's off that, I think maybe he'll hopefully perform better and not get caught out as much.
Yeah, not only that, but also, and this is just I'll end it right here. But like, I think that Prophet speculated that Doofus could be slightly more viable. That's the hero that he's been trying to break out, but just is not in a good spot. So honestly, I want to see how Prophet does, because I've really loved his play all year.
Yeah, so did I. I think everyone loves Prophet. Prophet and Burgering have been such a great DPS duo to watch, and I suppose losing Rascal sort of made sense in that with such a deadly combination of Prophet Burgering, how would you ever really conceive time to play, right? Like, Hureg has an in that he plays Pharah, and he's been putting a lot of time on Pharah, so he can kind of be the team's Pharah player if there's a map that comes up that you really need a Pharah strat. So he has an in, but with Rascal, it's like, well, a lot of your champions overline with Prophet and Burgering. You know, you do have some niche picks, like you have the Mei, you can probably play Sombra and some other things, but other than that, you're not going to really do as much that Prophet and Burgering can't do, probably. So he would just kind of be wasting time on the bench a lot. And interesting thing about Fisher was their statement was that they just couldn't integrate him into the team as well as the other players, which I thought was kind of interesting. But we'll definitely see how the Overwatch League team does Thursday and Friday. Hope everyone tunes in. It should be really exciting. I'm really glad that they're back. It's been really boring actually without any Overwatch action.
Yeah, and LCK took a week off too, so like our last week was like the most boring week I've ever experienced.
Well, lucky that is about to change. But does anyone have any final Overwatch thoughts that they want to talk about before we move on to League of Legends?
My only thing is I'm going to say that it's not... I don't think it's fair to schedule teams back-to-back days. The only thing that makes it fair is that NYXL plays on Friday also. But I think that it's dumb that they force teams to play back-to-back days, especially when they're playing two hugely high-profile matches like London is this week.
Yeah, I agree. Blizzard's scheduling for Overwatch League is still something that they need to fine-tune. Stage 1 had that horrendous kerfuffle where the Stage 1 playoffs were played on the same day as the last day of just regular matches. Like, why would you not just move it over to Sunday? I don't understand why anyone just tacked it on there and thought, yeah, this will be fine. And you have these back-to-back matches where it's just like, they're going to be tired at the end of the day, and you're only giving them 24 hours to really rest and get ready for the next one, which I guess other esports do. But I think in something like Overwatch, maybe you need more time, because it can get kind of exhausting playing like 4 maps or 5 maps and having to keep running around and doing all this other crazy stuff. But who knows? Maybe they'll fix it for the 3rd stage or something. I don't know. But let's move on to League of Legends, friends. The Academy team, just to give you a little update, they're still pretty hit and miss. I'm not sure what it is with them, but it seems that they either smash the opponent or the opponent does the smashing, because they did a pretty good job at beating Echo Fox Academy. And the team's looking really solid, and I was feeling really good. Then they played against TSM Academy, and they got destroyed. And I'm not sure if it's a specific player that is kind of holding us back, I think the draft really hurt us because for some reason they decided out of all the supports that were left, they had like Tarek, they had Tom Kench, they had options. They decided to pick Zillion support for Zazel, and it of course backfired tremendously. So I'm not sure why they did that, but hopefully Academy can right itself. I mean, when they're winning pretty well, and they look really good while they're doing it. But sometimes they just give all these advantages in the early game, and then they just let the other team, just smash them. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think I watched both of these games. I don't remember anything about them for some reason though. I'm pretty sure the Echo Fox game was the one where we were just like super competitive up to 18 minutes, and then somehow just Cloud9 just like swept them for like 7 minutes and won the game. Is that correct? It was like a 26 minute game.
I think so.
Yeah, that was a weird game. The TSN game was also really weird. The Zillion pick just seemed odd, to say the least. And missed Terrell's smurfing in Academy League played really well. So I don't know. I it's good competitive experience, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I mean the Academy team has also displayed a pretty good ability to kind of bounce back after tough losses. Like I remember not last week, but the week before last, they played, I can't remember who they played, but day one of the Academy schedule, they had a really bad loss. They just got they just got destroyed. The next game, they came out swinging and they looked great. It looked like it had never happened. So they're showing really good mental resiliency. I think that they just need to work on coordination as well as maybe tighten up their draft so they're not making stupid picks or just cleaning some things up in game so they're not giving away easy advantages that you have no business giving away.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. It's important that these guys are getting stage time and making mistakes more than anything else. And
Yeah, for
overall,
sure.
yeah, and overall they are doing pretty well. So
Yeah, they're
I
only
think
like
it's fun to
7-3,
watch them.
I think.
Yeah, they're. I'm not exactly sure what the rankings are. I just opened up the website, but they're doing well, and I think they're learning a lot. Like we have a lot to look forward to. I think from all of the players. I think all of them have a potential to be picked up by an LCS team in the next 2 years maximum, especially from Shiro and Wiggly, who probably have the furthest way to go.
Yeah. But let's move on to the big show, to the LCS Big Boys table. How about that TSM game, guys? Because I loved hearing all of the Cloud9 chants. I loved seeing the great decisive play. TSM only made a couple plays that game to try to like break up in the game, but Cloud9, great counterplay, and then they just kept pushing that advantage and didn't allow TSM a single moment to breathe, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You go first.
I was gonna say, because of the TSM game, I mean, it was really just not much I could really say about that. Especially, I almost felt sympathetic for Mike Young, because it's just like that, like the fact that they built 4 QSSs in a Banshee's Veil on Jensen. It's just like, what do you do with Skarner in that regard? It's just, you just sit there and just don't do anything. Like they couldn't get any engages. Licorice played his ass off, gladly. Which was great considering I think like a day or two previously on Reddit, like the top post was Haunster's little interview where, I mean, kind of taken out of context, but I mean that's just what they do.
He was trash talking everybody.
Yeah, he's just like, I don't really think that any of the NA top players have anything over me, and it's like, yeah, that one kind of backfired, didn't it, buddy? But I mean, it just, and even with the fact that they try to gank sneaky early, I mean, Fortunately, they put Sneaky on a champion like Ezreal, where it doesn't really need that many resources to begin with, and you don't really need to be ganked a lot. And the casters kind of commended him for being almost tilt proof, because I remember if I was also watching Hotline League where Saints is like, you really think that Sneaky, when they say, hey, you have to play Ezreal and you're not going to get any ganks and just farm with your Q, you think Sneaky goes, great, I love that. I love not getting ganked. The fact that he can actually do that like a champ, I mean, Godspeed to Sneaky, because even getting ganked once or twice like early in the game, he still just didn't even crack, and it just allowed Licorice and Jensen to get that much more of an advantage.
Yeah, and for someone who's super excited about the TSM Cloud9 matchup each time, like, this is one of the more dull matchups I can remember watching the past year or two. Like, this TSM roster is almost a joke at this point. Like, they have high quality talent, but they just can't bring it together. And seeing their match against Cloud9 was like the perfect like description of how their season's been going. Like, they just couldn't string any matter of plays together. They were like dumbstruck by some of the plays that Cloud9 made, and I think at the end of the day, the better team won, and there wasn't much that TSM could have done to switch the result at all.
Yeah, TSM's been like just really struggling, and I mean, I guess it's expected when you just dump 3/5 of your roster and replace it with a rookie jungler. And the G2 bot lane is something that it makes sense on paper, right? They've won all these EU championships. They've been to Worlds several times. They've proven themselves as a battle tested bot lane. But on TSM, I think they're just showing the same problems that G2 had, where if Mithy isn't impactful, Mithy is going to do nothing. And if Sven is behind, Sven's not going to really go and make any sort of aggressive kind of plays, because he'll feel too weak and he doesn't want to die to basically hurt the team even more, so he'll be protecting his KDA the whole time. So they're really struggling with the old problems of G2 as well as the old problems of TSM, where Bjergsen is forcing his jungler to basically be a ward into play kind of passively, and not really do as much as maybe some other junglers should. I don't know. It's weird that TSM has like all of these big names. Haunter is a good top laner. Bjergsen, one of the best mid laners in North America forever. You have the EU champion G2 bot lane, and you have Mike Young, and you have Coach Song, who coached Immortals to second place in the NLCS Summer Finals, and yet you're having mediocre results. I just don't understand why that is something that's kind of happening.
A quick fun fact: Bjergsen has the least and lowest wards per minute among any NALCS player at the moment.
Is that with or without the 4 other TSM players?
It probably
includes
includes them.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to say the very least, but that's kind of where I'll leave it.
Yeah, because Mike Young is tied for the most deaths, and Haunter is 4th. So I think that probably includes them.
All right. Well, let's move on to kind of the sour note of that weekend, where Cloud9 played against Echo Fox, and going into this match, everyone was saying, okay, Cloud9's not going to make the same mistake. They're not going to do dumb mistakes to kind of allow Echo Fox to just completely blow the game wide open. And what does Cloud9 do? They make stupid mistakes, then they allow Echo Fox to just blow the game wide open.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether we do want to start with this one. I'll start with the just elephant in the room that I did hear, and I don't really think it's that big of an elephant in the room. This is just my opinion. But people were criticizing the pick of the top lane Lucian. Yeah, and Reaper later on tweeted, if you guys didn't see, he tweeted his defense of that, and to some degree, I do kind of agree with what he's trying to say, and that's just, I mean, he genuinely thought, and everyone knows that one of the best picks into the gangplank is Lucian, but the thing about it is you have to do like a pretty damn good job. So I mean, the thing about Lucian, as we know, is that like he has no utility, he has no tankiness, he doesn't really have anything that you'd want in a traditional top laner. That even if you fall behind, you'll still serve some sort of purpose. So I I can respect the risk. However, the result is what's just like ultimately I look at the result. It's just like, damn it, man, we could have done something a bit better. They really put a lot of pressure in the top lane because obviously like that's where Echo Fox's huge win condition is. One thing I will criticize a bit more, and if you look at the draft, was the priority. I understand that they did want to put a lot of resources into Licorice for the top lane. However, I have to question their like I do have to question on some level their priority in terms of like AD carries because it did work against TSM the Ezreal pick, but it felt like for like in the event where like all your laners fall behind and you're forced to like kind of carry like when this kind of Ezreal does become very useless in team fights. The only thing that was really had anything going for us was probably the Orianna.
Well, my issue with the draft was that, first of all, I completely agree with the Lucian top lane after watching the game and looking at Reaper's explanation. You know, Licorice has been doing pretty well on his own, and he was actually. If you take the junglers out of the equation, Licorice was doing really well for himself in lane. I think the issue is that, as a whole, Cloud9 drafted themselves with a timer, basically, and said, okay, if you're not smashing by like 20 minutes and really snowballing, you're just going to lose. Because Echo Fox had this great safety scaling comp, right? Like Callista can save the Tom Kench can save Callista. You know, Gangplank has oranges. Hold on, sorry, I'm looking at the draft. You know, Sejuani has a lot of tankiness and disengage. Vladimir has pool and all the healing. So once Echo Fox gets to a certain point, it's just really hard to make a pick on this like snowball pick comp that you drafted. Like no one can dive in and kill Echo Fox relatively because all of the safety that's there just basically makes them, you know, makes us waste everything and then they just turn and fight. So I think that just as a whole, I think the comp was somewhat flawed, and I think that maybe we should have either taken tools away or maybe worked around it better. I will say that Echo Fox did a good job of baiting us with picking Vladimir and then sending it mid lane. I don't think anyone was expecting Phoenix to pick Vlad mid lane. But I think really it was just a compositional issue, and when our window closed, it was basically Echo Fox's game.
Yeah, I can't contest that point. I 100% agree.
Yeah, I think if there was something that we could directly change within the draft, I think it potentially could have been banning Tom Kench as opposed to some of the other bans that we had, because we had a chance to ban Tom Kench, but we ended up banning Camille and Varus instead, which I can see the reason that we would have banned them, but that kind of felt like one of the bigger problems. And can we take a moment to say thank God that Callista is getting nerfed after that bullshit kill on Alistar?
Oh yeah, that dive was
under the tower
and stupid,
and all that other shit. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, she's getting gutted right now, so we will probably, chances are we will not see her in the likes of competitive play any. I mean, they're going into patch 8, like what, 8.3 this week, but
yeah,
come
8.3
next
this
week,
week.
we're in 8.4, and I want her gone.
Same. I like her as an idea, but like seeing how she gets played on stage is such bullshit. But I do want to talk a little bit about the draft and the Lucian pick a little bit myself. I don't exactly like the idea of throwing down the gauntlet on Huni, and that's twice that we've done it, because the game plan from a Cloud9 perspective isn't exactly to snowball top lane, and it hasn't really been one of our top priorities all split. We've been putting a band-aid on top lane, but we haven't exactly been giving it the drugs that it needs to thrive, and I think that this was the perfect example of a game that went array because we didn't put the proper focus into the lane that we should have. The main thing for me was J4 and Lucian win that 2v2 against Gangplank and Sejuani. Probably up until 2 items for the Gangplank. So I'm not exactly sure why Sven decided to just kind of abandon a Licorice in the top lane. I mean, I don't like the Lucian pick, but once you lock in Lucian to go top lane, you have to give him the resources and pressure to be able to snowball that lane. Because when you looked at the lane before Dardak got a hold of it, a Licorice was playing it super well. When he was able to push, and Jetson was able to go even and get a little bit of a push in the mid lane, Sven was able to invade the jungle and take camps from Dardak up until maybe 12 to 15 minutes, and then he just left the blue topside jungle, and Dardak found a really good opening toward our red side jungle, and from then on, he just controlled the game and camped the Lucian until he was worthless at that point. So I think it was also really good play from Dardak, but I think that Sven could have done a better job keeping control of that top side, and I don't think it was too much Licorice's fault, though I do think that he did fall for some cheese, but I think that it was a team problem that didn't put enough pressure into the top side to win the match.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sven really didn't pressure and as much as he could have or should have. And I think maybe if he really just pressed that issue, maybe the game would have went a little bit differently. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. Unfortunate loss, but our only 2 losses have been to Echo Fox, and I think that's pretty decent. But Frozen, if your point is quick, we can get to you. But then I want to move on to the match preview.
Yeah, just one quick thing. What do you guys think about Reaper coming out on Twitter after the fact to try and explain the Lucian pick?
I think it's fine. I mean, people are gonna be having questions, and I mean, to explain your reasoning behind it, I think is fine. You know, sure, our team made the mistake. I mean, the Lucian pick wasn't really necessarily the reason why we lost the game. It was mostly because misallocating jungler pressure and having a comp that was on a timer, and then the time ran out. So I think that with that, he's just saying, look, guys, I made a sound decision because of A, B, and C or whatever, right? You know, we lost, but I think it at least shows that like there is a thought process to it, and the thought process is reasonable. And I think that it's perfectly fine, and especially with a really weird pick like Lucian top. I think it's mostly because that we like almost never see Lucian top. So I think it was mostly just to also say like, look, I know it's a weird pick, but hear me out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that him justifying his reasoning is fine, and you know, people were gonna look at that like nonstop just on paper and see, top Lucian, he was trolling or he's just trying to, disrespect Huni. But I'm looking at the word you said, like, imagine if he had a bad matchup against Huni and he wasn't doing well. Like yeah, you might have some more standard utility with like a tank or something, but he even said it right in his tweet. It's more disrespectful, in my opinion, to not try your best and not try to actually, go with what you think is a better pick. And and we've seen that Lucian is the pick to go into Gangplank. The only problem with it is it's very risky, and that's not just a Licorice problem or a Cloud9. That's just a Lucian problem where if you fall behind, you're pretty much done so.
I only asked the question because I'm not a huge fan of him coming out to try and explain the reasoning behind the pick, unless it's through kind of like a media source. I think I guess I don't really have a good explanation behind it. I was hoping that someone else kind of agreed with me and has something to add. But at the end of the day, he doesn't really answer to the fans per se. Reaper doesn't, and coming out to try and take the bait of 1,000 trolls going into his Twitter feed didn't feel right to me. And I know also at the end of the day that he is actually 24 days younger than I am. I looked it up, and I know I would have a hard time keeping my mouth shut. But I just feel like if you were to ask Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots, like why they ran a certain play in the Super Bowl, like he wouldn't give a second thought about responding to anybody who asked him, except maybe a couple of journalists and post conference presser. So I just thought that it was weird that he came out on Twitter and thought that giving an answer to all the people asking him about it was kind of appropriate. I thought it was kind of weird.
Well, whatever the case may be, he did it. But let's move on to the match previews. So February 24th at 5 p.m. Eastern, Cloud9 will be facing 100 Thieves. And February 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern, Cloud9 will be playing against Clutch Gaming. So this should be a pretty interesting weekend. I think at the very least it would be a 1-1 because 100 Thieves has been very hit and miss lately. They have this really experienced roster, but they can't seem to really pull it together. And I think that Cloud9 is looking much more synergistic than 100 Thieves. I think that most of the time they're playing a lot smarter and they're playing a lot just better than a lot of the other teams. So I think that 100 Thieves should be an interesting matchup, but I think it's one that I would expect us to win. Licorice has proved that he can lane against these big names like Sunday and Hooney and, you know, do decently well. And I think that our other laners are showing incredible skill as well. So I think it should be fine as long as Sven is able to really out pressure Meteos and make sure Meteos doesn't do anything too crazy. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, the 100 Thieves matchup, I'm not too concerned with. Again, because it's best of ones, you should just treat it like it's your last. And that's kind of like the way I look at it. It's very dramatic, but you know, that's just the way I see it. I mean, 100 Thieves haven't really been on fire lately. I mean, they lost to Golden Guardians. They've been losing matches that they shouldn't have. They've been just straight up throwing games to some degree. I mean, I'm not too concerned with that one. The only place I have a bit question mark is in terms of just keep an eye out is probably in Someday, but you know, Licorice has proven that he could lane against some of the best, so I'm not too concerned with Someday right now. Clutch Gaming is the one that's going to be very interesting to me, considering Febevin has been playing out of his mind, to say the least. As someone who's been watching him closely back, ever since he first debuted in EU1 Fnatic, I watched his second year on Fnatic, I watched his year on H2K, and pretty much year after, with the exception of his second year on Fnatic after Yellowstar left, Febevin has just been on a ramp, a very sleeper pick in Europe when it comes to mid laners, and he's definitely been putting on a show right now for in NA, and it's probably one of the strongest basically one of the strongest points that Clutch has to play around. They have Apollo and Hakuo, who, by the way, Apollo did play very well against TSM, and I think that's where Sneaky needs to really they really need to put their emphasis in. If I was them, I wouldn't play them like they played against Echo Fox or Team Liquid, where they wanted a winning lane into Licorice. If I was them, actually, I would go into this one actually kind of putting him in an even matchup. Maybe put him at see how he does from behind. But considering that mid and AD carry are probably going to be the biggest points of contention against Clutch Gaming, that they should really put a lot of emphasis there for Sneaky and Jensen if they do want to come out with a win.
Yeah, I think that's quite agreeable. I'm personally not a huge fan of the 100 Thieves roster and how they've been performing up to this point. For one, they're just not clicking still halfway through the season, and I just don't feel like it's a strong enough roster to really make an impact on the split unless they're clicking. And it just doesn't feel like they're putting it together at this point. So I think that should be a comfortable win. Licorice performed well enough last time, and to me, that's the biggest competition. So as long as we can get him into a competitive a matchup without falling too far behind, I think that should be more of an easy win than anything else. For Clutch, I do agree that Fabivin is kind of the big deal in this matchup. If we can neutralize him and keep him from going off, or keep Cloud9 from inting into him one by one like CLG did, then we should be okay. I think that this is a matchup that we should be able to win all 4 matchups around him to be able to snowball the game rather than Jensen solo carrying like we have expected kind of in the past. So I'm confident in both games, but I do think that Clutch is actually a pretty good team at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think Clutch is actually a pretty big threat. Lyra he's been kind of off and on, but I think that Lyra, for the most part, has shown that he's a really good jungler. And like Dr.Manhatten said, the Clutch game bot lane is actually pretty sick. Apollo and Hakuho is always, even on Envy, has shown just how deadly they can really be. You know, even though Envy was really struggling, the core of like Lyra, Apollo, Hakuho has always kind of been that bright spot. And I think this will be the same thing here. I'm not sure what to do draft-wise. I think basically maybe make it so Lyra doesn't get anything too game impacting. Maybe also pinch Febivin out of a lot of the super OP matchups and maybe bring him down to something where Jensen can easily 1v1. But I think if we play around mid and ensure that Jensen does really well, I think we should win. Jensen is really, really good, and I think that he can definitely beat Febivin. He did it before when we played Clutch Gaming the first time. I think he can do it again as long as everyone's focused and playing correctly. But I guess we should probably move on to some predictions. Dr.Manhatten, what is your predictions for this weekend?
I think that, as you said, at the very least, I'm expecting a 1-1. At assuming that they maybe drop the ball against Clutch Gaming, but that's what I can expect. That's the least of their of what they're capable of. Realistically, I think we can 2-0 them.
Yeah, I think a 2-0 is definitely a reasonable experience. I think we've beaten both these teams before, and we've beaten them pretty well. So I think that it's just about continuing to stay on form, continuing to stay focused. Do that brain check beforehand. But I think 2-0 or 1-1, I think, is perfectly reasonable. I think it just matters how Cloud9 is coming into the game and how the opponent's coming into the game, and who can, who's just there that day. But I think Cloud9 is favored against Clutch just in how we've been playing and how we've been looking. But what about you, Frozen? What are your predictions for this weekend?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think in most worlds that we would win this matchup, and we should be favored in both matchups. So I'm personally not too worried, but I'm going to be watching nervously as we play Clutch, just because I do think that they have a pretty good roster.
Yes, the roster is indeed spooky, but hopefully we will come out on top. That being said, that will do it for us today. So thank you for listening to Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to us at C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. We'll try to get back to you whenever we can with questions and the like. So please hit us up. And that'll do it. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time, people.
See ya.